I've always loved the way Maori culture is so connected to the environment, spiritually and in many other ways, from the history, the stories of their ancestors, traditions and values embedded in the mountains, river and wildlife, and more. So on that note, did we know that there's actually a tourism company operating in Hamilton City to explain the cultural meanings behind the monuments and artworks we see around? Well, I didn't until I got to meet Les. Bringing Maori and non-Maori together through strengthening cultural understanding is the beautiful kaupapa of this Maori tourism company, Te Ahurei Maori Tourism. Thanks to Les and the work that he does, I now know to appreciate the meaning behind some of these monuments beyond the physical appearance, the way I otherwise wouldn't have before. Let's tune in, and if we would like to book with Les on a tour, we can find him on Facebook at Te Ahurei Maori Tourism. Details below. Let's tune in.
Kia ora Alpha, and ko Les Tutia Taku Ingoa. Les Tutia was my name, and I represent Te Ahurei Maori Tourism. And we offer Maori art walking tours of Hamilton CBD. So where we share the stories of the different murals and sculptures and murals within the city. So we're starting here at the sculpture to my left, which is Te Tatau ki Kirikiriroa, the gateway to Kirikiriroa, and Kirikiriroa being the traditional name for Hamilton. I just want to acknowledge the artist, a gentleman by the name of Professor Robert Yonke, Massey University, and he was the lead artist behind the sculpture that was erected in 2019. And Te Tatau ki Kirikiriroa is actually an invitation by Robert Yonke, or Bob Yonke, to all our guests and visitors to Hamilton, to, in essence, welcoming them to Hamilton, because with gateways and doorways, as we all know, it's in essence a marker between different spaces. Come to Hamilton, and by symbolically stepping through the gateway, through the tatau, opening themselves up to our history, the history of Kirikiriroa Hamilton, and by extension the local people of Ngāti Wairere, and again the people of Waikato and Tainui. So just a couple of things about this particular sculpture. And as you can see, it's a gateway that opens up to our ancestral river of Waikato, just behind me here. But it's loaded with symbology, iconography, and it represents a lot of the Maori philosophy. For example, there's these motifs or these designs on the sides of the sculpture. The step that designs the potama carving design, and the potama design in essence represents growth and whaimā tauranga. So as young kids say today, leveling up, through study or through the pursuit of whatever passion you may have, education, but also achieving your goals. Then we also have this whakatauki, proverb, which was actually a proverb from our first ariki. The English equivalent would be king. So this was actually said by this whakatauki. This proverb was said by our first king, our first ariki, and his name is Pōtatau Te Whirowhiro. And he is the direct tūpuna or ancestor of today's Maori king, Tuheitia Pōtatau Te Whirowhiro Te Tuawhitu. So basically Tuheitia is the seventh Pōtatau.
Wow, the seventh.
If I can, I'll just give you a bit of translation. Tahi te koha o te ngira, e kuhuna ai te miro mā, te miro pango, te miro whiro.
Wow.
It is but through one eye of the needle that all threads must pass. The white thread, te miro mā, the black thread and the red thread. In essence, talking about wherever you may be from, you know, whether you're part of the black thread, the white thread, the black thread, or the red thread, there's only the answer is working together. So as it says, e kuhonai, te miro mā, te miro pango, te miro whero. So through one eye of the needle, that all threads must pass. So working together, kotahitanga.
Pan out.
So just to complement what was said on the other side with regards to the whakatauki, this is the other half of that whakatauki shared by pōtatau. I muri nei, kia mau ki te aroha, ki te ture, ki te whakapono. So after me, hold fast to love, hold fast to the law, and hold fast to faith. So in essence,
beautiful.
Hold on to your culture and be an upstanding citizen and be kind.
That's beautiful, thank you.
Kia ora no. So we're at this mural, which is called the Fishing Nets of Tomorrow, which relates to another whakatauki or proverb, which is ka pū te ruha, ka hao te rangatahi. To translate that, it means as the old net is cast out, a new net is dragged in, and it's talking about, in essence, the transmission or intergenerational transmission of knowledge between a father and his son, but also talking about environmental guardianship and awareness as well. Go into that a little bit if you like. In this context, talking about the intergenerational transmission of knowledge between a father and a son. In this mural specifically, the young man portrayed up here, the head or the face of the young man in the profile shot here plays the role of a son, and who is actually a local leader, I guess you could say, in our different waka communities, our traditional canoeing communities, whether that be the waka ama outrigger canoes, the traditional waka taua ceremonial war canoes, and also the ocean-going waka haurua, so double hull voyaging canoes that go around the world. The young chief or the young leader portrayed in the profile shot is active in all those communities, but it's not like he woke up one day and all of a sudden he was given the mantle of leadership. It's something that he was, I guess you could say, trained for and raised within those schools and bodies of knowledge pertaining to our waterways, whether that be our river, lakes, or Te Moana Nui a Kiwa, the ocean. And the reason I say that is because the young leader in the profile shot today, if I can give his name is Tūranga Kū, and Tūranga is the leader of one of the King Tuheitia's ceremonial war canoes, specifically Tāhere Tiki Tiki Tuarua. And but prior to that, prior to Tūranga being the captain, his father was actually the captain, and his name is Hoturoa Kū. Now, as I mentioned, Tūranga was trained in these schools of knowledge, around practical and also spiritual practices. So learning the right incantations in terms of spirituality, and but also the practical side, water safety, because if you want to be a leader, you have to make sure that you take care of the people and you know your stuff. But that was taught to him by a bunch of elders, but more specifically and mainly his father Hoturoa Kū, who actually is represented in the form of the huia bird that sits on his shoulder. And because they're watermen, the huia bird is a native bird to Aotearoa, which is unfortunately extinct, I think for the last 100 years, give or take. And the huia feathers, particularly the tail feathers, if you look at the old photos of the old chiefs, it was always the huia feathers that were in the that adorned the headdresses. But the huia bird normally has, well, if you look at all the photos, has orange wattles. But because Hoturoa and Tūranga are watermen, instead of the wattles being orange, the wattles are actually turquoise, because the knowledge that's being shared is relating to water. And again, whether that be the river or the oceans or the lakes. And with that, you'll see that the profile shot of Tūranga, he's actually looking towards the river in an act of kaitiakitanga, in an act of environmental guardianship of the river, and again by extension the lakes and the oceans. Hence why the wattles are turquoise, and the circular pattern is turquoise as well, to represent all those bodies of water. And to wrap it up, I just want to acknowledge the two artists behind this beautiful mural, who are Poi Ngāwati, Tex X is his artist name, girlfriend Hana Maihi, and her artist name is Hine X. Cool. And this mural was completed in March of 2020, so like about a week before the whole lockdown.
Yeah, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Wow. Oh God. Thank you so much.
Kia ora anō. We've arrived at the riverside, to our ancestral river Waikato. Also to point out, just up back towards the Victoria Street, uphill there, we're actually looking at the back of the Waikato Museum, more specifically the Te Winika Gallery. And I just want to draw your attention to those three carved figures, or the carved figures just at the back of the gallery, as they represent significant ancestors, both locally and also throughout the entire tribal region of Tainui. But right at the top we have Hoturoa. Hoturoa was extremely significant to the people of Tainui. Our people, once upon a time, when we first arrived in Aotearoa, in the lead up to that, we were great voyagers that sailed in these double-hulled waka haurua, ocean-going vessels, leaving different parts of the Pacific, mainly Tahiti, and crossing the Pacific to come to Aotearoa. There were several waka that crossed the ocean in that period, but there are 7 main ones that are recalled in the what's known as the classical migration period. And those seven waka, for example, I'll just name them real quickly. Tainui, Te Arawa, Tokomaru, Mātātua, Aotea, Korahaupo and Takitimu. All these 7 waka went to different parts of the island or the country when they arrived, and established their settlements and established new civilizations in essence. But here in Tainui, here in Waikato, our waka, one of the 7 is the Tainui canoe, and each of these 7 waka had captains, and our captain just so happens to be Hoturoa, and again that's the carved figure at the top, holding the paddle of Tainui, called Te Hoe or Tainui. He's holding it, so he was our captain. Below him Each waka had a captain and a bunch of other specialists. Just to name a few, you had the actual celestial navigators, the ones who would observe the star movements and the lunar cycles.
Wow.
You also had gardeners. You also had midwives, warriors, menstruation experts, everything. You had everything.
Wow.
But one of the other main roles was that of a priest, tohunga. And the tohunga, so if Hoturoa was the captain on the Tainui waka, the tohunga is Rakataura. And Rakataura is the second carved figure just below Hoturoa there. He has a fascinating story, Rakataura. He has a fascinating, they all do, but he has a really fascinating story of overcoming adversity and physical affliction. Rakataura, in some narratives, you speak to other people and they'll tell you a different version. You speak to a second person, they'll tell you a second version. But to what I've been brought up with, Rakataura was also known as Hape. And Hape was like an alias name, I guess you could say. But it actually made reference, Hape made reference to the fact that he had a hoppy foot, he had a club foot, physical affliction. But again, he, despite his physical affliction, he was actually able to achieve great feats right throughout the rohe, or the tribal region of Tainui. Hape, or Rakataura, was instrumental in naming so many of our local mountains. Originally he had a scandalous reputation, but he was a man on a mission, and he was actually in love with a maiden on board the Tainui waka. And he knew that to win the heart of this particular wahine, this maiden, this puhi, he had to change. So, the first half of his life was full of him pushing the envelope, pushing boundaries, upsetting a lot of people. But then the second half of his life, when he dedicated it to the service of his people and winning the love of his partner, he became quite a virtuous man and achieved a lot, and in the pursuit of love. So basically changed for love. All the local mountains talk about Rakataura, the naming of all the different mountains, from Karioi in Raglan to Perongia, to Kakepoku, down to Maunga Tautari, down towards Lake Karapiro, and then back up to heading east towards Te Aroha. They all talk about this love story that
yes, they do.
Rakataura, or Hape, was a part of. It's a fascinating bloke. Tēnā tātou no whānau. We're here at Ferrybank Park, again just riverside. Ferrybank Park, standing in front of this beautiful sculpture, which is Toia Mai. The name of the sculpture is Toia Mai, which in essence means to pull together, to work together. It's a Toia Mai, those two words are actually used quite commonly when welcoming visitors onto a marae. There's a common chant which says Toia Mai te waka. So basically, pull the canoe, pulling together, working together. And as you may have figured out, this sculpture is actually the tauihu, or the nose of a single hulled waka standing up. To acknowledge Joe Citizen, who is the lead artist behind this beautiful sculpture, and his colleagues at the Wintec Hamilton campus, just up on Anglesey Street, close by. So it was erected in November of 2018. I shared some time down here with Joe and he broke down a lot of the iconography and the symbolism and the thought process behind his mahitoi, his artwork. It's many things. One of the primary kind of kōrero thought processes behind the sculpture, Joe shared with me, is that it's actually a tribute to the mātauranga waka, which is the traditional voyaging knowledge of the old people, of our ancestors, and using celestial navigation and the reading of tohu moana, so signs of the ocean, tohu whetū, star signs, to navigate all the way from North Polynesia, Tahiti, to Aotearoa. I say Tahiti, it's often referred to, and that's a long story, but it's often referred to also as Hawaii as well, Hawaii Nui, the Great Hawaii. I just want to draw you, if you can come a bit closer, I just want to point out some of the icons in there, iconography. It's truly amazing. There's so many layers to all the art around. What Joe shared with me was just fascinating, to be honest. Just break it down a little bit, and if I can just start at the top here. Alpha mentioned that she said, is that a whakatauki? And I said, yes, it is. It's a whakatauki. Whakawhiti atu wai te kōpū mānia o Kirikiriroa, me ona mārakai te ngāwha whakatupu ake o te whenua mōmona. So, to translate, across the smooth belly of Kirikiriroa Hamilton, its gardens bursting with the fullness of good things. So that particular whakatauki, or kōrero, was said by our second king, Kingi Tāwhiao. Earlier I spoke about King Pōtatau, who was the first king, the first ariki of the kingitanga. His son is King Tāwhiao, so the second king. Pōtatau, a fascinating man. He's considered a warrior king. He's considered many things, but primarily Pōtatau was a warrior king. Whereas his son, Tāwhiao, the second king, who shares that whakatauki, Tāwhiao was known as a philosopher king, a poet king. And there's many reasons for that, but primarily he was a known as a matakite, so a visionary, a poet and a philosopher. This is a perfect example because this whakatauki is actually just one verse of a really long kōrero from Tāwhiao. And what he's referring to is, if you can see there, he's referring to Kirikiriroa, the traditional name of Hamilton. He's referring to Kirikiriroa as a kōpū mānia, so a full belly, or kōpū is a womb. So he's actually referring to Kirikiriroa as the pregnant womb, or the womb of a pregnant woman. Over the last couple of years, the public awareness around Maori star law, LORE, has become more prominent, with experts such as Dr. Rangi Mātāmoa and others coming to the fore to teach Aotearoa about star law as it pertains to Maori. Now, Matariki being chief amongst, that star law. To tie it into this particular sculpture, around New Zealand, different iwi, different people say that Matariki, some believe they have 9 stars, some believe there are 11 stars, others 13, but here in Waikato and Tainui, we believe that there's 7 stars to Matariki, that we can see anyway. They are Matariki, being the mother. So when you look up to the night sky and you see Matariki, Matariki as the mother of the star cluster sits in the middle of her children who surround her, and her 6 children being Ururangi, who is a masculine star associated with wind, Waipuna Arangi, who is a feminine star associated with rain and mist, fog. Waipunārangi is very prominent during these times, winter, matariki. Then you also have Waiti. Waiti is again a feminine star associated with freshwater resources such as freshwater crayfish, eels, things like that, food sources. Then you have Waita, who is a masculine star associated with the salt water and the coast. So Waita is the star of our fishermen and our divers. Then you have Tupuarangi, who is a masculine star associated with things that grow off ground. So tupu means to grow, rangi above the head, so anything that grows above the head, Tupuarangi. And then his sister Tupuanuku, again to grow in the ground, to tupu in Papatuanuku, the Mother Earth. Tupuanuku, to grow in Mother Earth, tupu in Mother Earth, Papatuanuku. And if you look towards the sculpture, just like in the star cluster where she sits in the middle, Matariki, the mother, represented by that small triangle, sits in the middle of her 6 children, being Ururangi, that particular icon across here, Waipunārangi, coming down to Waiti, right there, associated with freshwater. And because freshwater always flows down into the sea, Waita is there, star of our fishermen and our divers. And then if you pivot to this side, you have Tupuarangi, so again associated with our things that grow in the trees. That was the star of our bird snarers in traditional times.
Cool.
Now berry collectors such as the meadowberry.
Cool.
And then down here is Tupuanuku, again to tupu, to grow, in Papatuanuku, Tupuanuku. So that was the star of our gardeners.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, it's amazing. Who would have thought to look inside and see these?
Yeah. So it's actually not functioning properly because it's actually a multi-sensory and multimedia installation that Joe erected here.
Oh, right.
Yeah. When it's working, all these flash, all these symbols flash, everything flashes. And depending on the weather patterns of the time, it gives you a different light pattern, light show, and even a different soundtrack.
Really, there's sounds that come from here.
So the traditional kuowo flutes and the puturino stuff. Yeah.
Wow.
I've come down here when it was working in summer.
Yeah.
I've come down here many times at night, but at summer you get the yellowy, greeny, orange light show.
Wow.
With a very boisterous, enthusiastic soundtrack.
Cool.
Winter, you come down and it's a different light pattern show, which is the cooler colours of white, sky blue, darker blue, representing the cool weather. So, yeah. Hoi anō tātou, we've come to the end of our little tour, and just on behalf of Ahurei Maori Tourism, I just want to send a special thank you to Alpha for coming along and allowing me to share something that I'm super passionate about, which is our art, our culture, and our narratives. Because I think in my experience, the art and the stories that are stored into each piece of art, reinforces the importance of principles and values. On that, the principal objective of Te Ahurei Maori Tourism is to use our Maori arts tour to bring Maori and non-Maori closer together. So that's what we refer to as our kaupapa matua, our principal objective, bringing Maori and non-Maori closer together, whakapākari te māramatanga, so strengthening the understanding, and through that achieving kotahitanga, so unity.
So if you'd like some more positive in our lives, join me in this podcast journey. Subscribe, and I'm always open to new topics and suggestions. Let's keep it moving and grow more of the good things. Thank you so much.